Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Friends of Liberty Republican Club. It's our evening event, a very special one. Before we introduce our guests, we're going to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm turning very slowly on the steps because I'm not this tall.
Help, be careful.
I'm good. I'm holding up.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for the invocation.
I just want to say this is the beginning of a new month on the Jewish calendar, Adar, and in Adar we have Purim. So we're supposed to be increasing in joy, as we say in Hebrew, Mar B'Simcha. So I just wanted, and Purim is a good holiday for everybody to look at because the Jewish leaders were dealing with a secular threat, and you can read all about it in the book. I'm not going there. Okay.
Hold the mic closer, all right?
Okay, I can't see these glasses. It's okay. I'm reading Psalm 113. Praise God, praise your servants of Hashem, praise the name of Hashem. The name of Hashem will be blessed from now and forever. From the rising of the sun to its setting, praise the name of Hashem. High above all the nations is Hashem, above the heavens is his glory. Who is Hashem, our God, who dwells on high, yet looks down so low in the heavens and upon the earth. He raises up the poor from the dust, from the dunghills he lifts up the needy, to seat them with nobles. With the nobles of his people. He returns the barren women to the home as the joyful mother of children. Praise Hashem.
You may be seated. And members and non-members are invited to a very special program on March 7th to celebrate Purim. And in its very traditional way, we will have what we call a spiel. That's a fun presentation. It's a play that we have a lot of fun with. And rehearsals have begun. So that's March 7th. If you're interested, contact that lady over there. Giselle Lazarowitz, who's a co-president of the Sisterhood at Torah Or. You know, it's funny. I'm standing on this, don't record this. I'm standing on a step stool, but I can't see from this distance. It's hilarious. Okay. Before we introduce a very, very special guest whom I've come to know and enjoy, and we have another special guest who I've come to know and enjoy the company of both. I'll introduce them momentarily. But before I do, I know I don't have to remind anyone in this room the importance of elections and the consequences of elections. We know every vote counts, whether you vote by mail or in person. There is a new Florida state requirement that you should be aware of. To receive your vote by mail this year, you now must request it every year. In the past, we were able to request it once, and it would come automatically, and now it does not. We'll let you know what the rules are or how you need to apply for it, but our next election happens to be 2024. We have none in our area. There is one going on March 16th, but it's not our district. So we will let you know how to apply for a ballot as soon as they have them available and they give the correct information and instructions. It's now my pleasure, I have to look at that, right? It's now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Suzanne Page, who is right here to my left. She's going to be talking about the theme of tonight's program, which is very, very dear to my heart, having been an educator myself, all grades through middle school, as well as a teacher of paraprofessionals. And Pam Weldon, a professional educator, and Gail Olson, just a professional in every way. And she's a community activist and is very responsive to what is needed in communities. And it is such a pleasure to have a new friend and to see my old friends here this evening to share their thoughts about something that, to me, and I'm sure if you're here, important to you and critical, what's going on in our schools. Not just the public schools, not just the universities, but even the private schools. And I have a short little story of my own before I ask Suzanne to come up. About a year ago, I had my granddaughter staying with me. She was having a hard time in school. Well, who wouldn't have a hard time in Seattle? I want to ask you. So she was in Seattle and she was in a private school. I happened to be watching, what station news do you think I was watching? Fox. So she says to me, "You're watching Fox News. You know, you're biased." This is my granddaughter talking to me. "I'm biased." "Why do you say that?" I asked her. This beautiful child says, "Well, my teacher," this is in a day school, "my teacher told us for the assignment we have, these are the stations we're allowed to watch." And Fox was not on it. So, Bubby, you're biased. And I had to work with her to understand what that accusation means and how she's not thinking for herself. And that is what we're dealing with today in such proportions that it's hard to believe. Children, young adults, not thinking for themselves. So we're going to get a treat from this wonderful educator, Dr. Suzanne Page, who will be talking about this, and she has vast experience. She's going to tell you what she, you know what, she's got her doctorate in economics and finance. Oi. That's pretty. Econometrics. And oh, of course, econometrics, of course. Yeah, right. Suzanne, please.
Thank you, Hilda.
I'm so happy to be relieved.
It's going to be a hard act to follow. We had President Trump last night at Club 47, which unfortunately I was not able to go to because no, they changed it to 47. I could not go because I had to put a kitty cat down. Heck, my 15-year-old plus 8 months, she was ready to go. And it comes on the heels of my having to put Dante, who we called the big guy, because he was a.
They are dogs.
He was no, no, they were cats. He was a big cat. He was 18 pounds, People would come in who worked in the house. They'd say, "Oh, what's your dog's name?" I say, "No, that's a cat, and his name's Dante." And he was a gift because the former cat we had before him, her name was Wilhelmina. She was a Maine Coon mix, and I had never had a pedigree. So my former boss and his wife gave my daughter and I this beautiful, beautiful, gorgeous pedigree. And he looked like a light-colored lion, and he had a good long life and a good long run. And it was still hard to put him down, but he was ready. And then Hackett, this weekend, that was her buddy. And at 15 years and 8 months, she said, "I'm ready." And we still have one at home we call the Wild Man. His name's Gandalf. He's black, coal black. And he was a rescue. Hackett was a rescue. Gandalf was living in the preserve outside my house. He needed a home. What was I supposed to do? I couldn't leave him out there. You know, so I took him in. But anyway, I have many decades of experience with students. I call my kids, I love them. They drive me crazy sometimes. It's okay. I got big shoulders, a big mouth. I'm a Jewish mother, I got a big mouth, right? I'm a Jersey girl. I was born in Rahway. You can take the girl out of Jersey, you can't take the Jersey out of the girl. You don't mess with us, right? Born and raised in Rahway, New Jersey. My mom was a homemaker, my father was an entrepreneur. He was a Lincoln Mercury dealer on what they call Automobile Row, St. George's Avenue in Rahway. Excuse me? Rahway, Union County. I attended public schools, and I graduated from Rahway Senior High School. I went to the University of Alabama and earned a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration with a major in economics. And from there, I also worked in a bank to finance my school, and I took out student loans. From there, I went to the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana and earned a Master's of Science and a PhD in economics. And I, as Hilda told you, I was in the mathematical money end of economics because it was international finance, econometrics, which is essentially statistics, and monetary theory. And my dissertation dealt with how inflation and exchange rates impact investment decisions of multinational corporations. From there, I went to the University of Bridgeport as an assistant professor of public administration, where I taught economics and finance. And from Bridgeport, the school down the street, Fairfield University, hired me away and made me a department chair. So I went to Fairfield University, and there I taught finance. After Fairfield University, I went to the University of Hartford because I married a man who was a physician at Hartford Hospital, got married, had a baby, and we stayed there for a while. Then I went into private industry. I became a single parent because he got his medical education and left us. He was a stinker. From West Hartford, Connecticut, we came down here. My father died in the meantime, and my mother developed cancer. So Leah, my daughter, and I came down here to take care of Grandma. Entered private industry as a financial consultant. I dealt with high net worth people, but always kept my hand in education because students are near and dear to my heart. After that, I also worked in real estate development. Also worked for the city of Boca Raton for a while, so I'd run the gamut. I got private sector experience, public sector experience, for-profit colleges, not-for-profit colleges, public, private, the whole 9 yards. And I tell that to my kids. And I say, look, like you, I had to incur a lot of debt to get my education, but you know what? Look at me now. I said, the best is yet to come. Keep your nose to the grindstone. Keep doing what you're doing. You'll get your debt paid off. Pay it off over time. Don't worry about it. Just do your work and get good grades. And so they do. I have a daughter who, when Hilda was speaking about students not being able to think for themselves, after high school, where my daughter went to Dreyfus after Donna Fine, and after high school she said, I'm tired, and I could understand why. So she decided to model. She's very tall and very pretty, and she modeled for a while. She went out to California. She did a couple of movies. None of them won Academy Awards. Toured with a couple of rock bands and became a singer-songwriter, a certified personal trainer. And then she said, Mom, can I come home? I said, sure, come on. Comes back here, and she's still a certified personal trainer. And she says, I think I'll go to college. I said, okay. She said, I think I'll go to FAU. I said, why do you want to go to FAU? What are you going to major in? She said, well, I think psychology. I said, look, this is my advice. What I would do, I'd go over to Palm Beach State because it's a good school. I've had courses there, and I've had some pretty tough professors from Palm Beach State. So I'd go there, get my associates, and then you'll transfer to a private school. We'll decide which one you go to. So she went to Palm Beach State. She majored in psychology. She had a 3.95 in the honors program, and she also worked. And she got accepted at Nova, Southeastern University, and she got accepted at Boston U. No school made her take the SAT because her grades were so high. So she didn't. So we decided Boston U did not give her as much money as Nova, so she went down to Nova. Well, the first week at Nova, she was in the honors program in psychology. She comes home and she's snorting like a bull. I thought she's gonna have a heart attack. She comes in like a banshee. And I thought, oh goodness. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, what'd they do? What did the college tell her she could not do or couldn't wear or couldn't do something? Well, it turns out she had this one professor, if you want to call him that, and he was for both of her honors psychology classes. She had a difference of opinion on someone in psychology, and she's like me. She's going to voice her opinion. You know, that's freedom of speech. He told her she could not have an opinion other than what he gave her. Well, y'all don't know Leah, but if you look at me and you hear me, you listen to me, that's Leah. She's just like I am. We're both stubborn and we have big mouths, that's it. And we'll be polite, but we're gonna speak our mind. She says, I'm not going back there. I said, wait a minute, whoa, time out. So she decided, she said, I'm not majoring in psychology. I'm gonna quit. I said, no, don't do that yet. Don't do anything rash, sleep on it. She decided, I'm not doing psychology. I said, okay, fine. So she took electives, which was okay. They were in music and theater, and that was good. She stayed out a semester and went back. She decided to major in neuroscience. So this past December, she graduated with her Bachelor of Science in Neuroscience from Nova. And she's gotten a job offer, and she's gonna be up in Wellington. She's gonna be a general manager, which is good. So that's good for her. That's my personal story. All right, now, I'm not a politician. I don't like politicians, they lie. I don't lie. I don't have a good enough memory to remember the lie I told. I don't like doing that. I won't do it. I know Gail's laughing. Gail knows me very well. Gail and Pam are both on my board. Pam is a specialist with 30 years in training, in dealing with dyslexic students. Gail, she's just fantastic. I don't know. Both of them are. I love both of them. And of course, my buddy over here, Hilda. But I'm not a politician. I get up, I say what's on my mind, and that's it. And what I tell you is going to be the truth. I don't quote numbers. I'm going to give you some numbers tonight, but I'm saying whether or not they're accurate, I don't know, because I don't see the methodology. I was not able to read the study. I don't know how they collected the data. So, this is what they say, but we'll take it with a grain of salt. How did I get into this? And before I do that, let me tell you, at night before I retire, I do puzzles. Sometimes they're logic puzzles. Sometimes they're crossword puzzles, and sometimes they're just different kinds of puzzles. A puzzle that I did last night, right before I went to sleep, the solution to the puzzle was, education is the chief defense of nations. And I thought, how apropos with what we're going to do tonight, and what we're going to talk about. So that's where we're coming from. So how did I get into, I don't want to say politics, how did I get into running for the school board, which I ran in 2020. Now, how did that happen? Well, there was somebody who was drafted in 2016 to run. I got drafted in 2020 because around June 7th, my phone rang, and it's 10 o'clock or 10:30, and across the phone, it said Michael Barnett. Well, Michael Barnett's the chairman of the Republican Party of Palm Beach County. I said, well, I've got to take that. Doesn't matter if it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I pick up the phone. Hello? He doesn't say hello, goodbye, or anything. The first words out of his mouth were, Dr. Page, you have to run. And they're, well, now, Michael, you know, I hadn't thought about this because this is, you know, you got to do this. It's kind of scary. He was not going to let me off the phone until I agreed to run. Any excuse I gave him, Dr. Page, you have to run. Dr. Page, you have to run. I said, all right, I'll tell you what to do. Stop calling me Dr. Page and I'll run. He says, okay, Suzanne. I said, okay, I'm running. I said, I don't know how to do this. I'm flying by the seat of my pants. You know, this is June. The election is August because school board elections are done in the primary. I said, I don't know what I'm doing. What do I do? He said, well, you got to register. I said, okay, fine. I said, I don't have any money to register. Don't worry, we'll take care of it. They did. So I get off the phone. I go up to military trail. Is that where the SOE's office is? Go up there, get my paperwork, fill it out, submit it, put the check in. They give me the party reimburses me. I said, okay, fine. And I'm off and running. And I'm saying, okay, I've done that. Now what do I do? Well, I didn't have any staff. I didn't have any signs. But someone called Sue Snowden, who was with the party, and he said, his name is Grant Brewer, and he said, I'd like to get involved. What do I do? She said, call Suzanne Page. She's running for the school board in District 5 against Frank Barbieri, who's got 12 years, he's a 12-year incumbent. Give her some help. Okay, fine. I get this cold call. Grant Brewer, I meet with him. He says, okay, we can do this. Okay, fine. I said, what do we do? I said, I need marketing folks. I said, I don't have money for signs, I don't have money for staff, I can't pay anybody. I'm gonna do the accounting work myself for the financial reports that have to be submitted. But I need marketing. We gotta get my name out there. Nobody knows me. So he finds me these two kids, and I meet kids. Two kids from Haiti, geniuses. They were wonderful. Talk about marketing. Wow, did they do a job? And I got kicked off Facebook for a little bit because I went after Frank Barbieri, tooth and nail, and everything I said was true. Everything, every word I said, it was absolutely true. You could fact check it. But they still kicked me off. So it's okay, they got me back on. My marketing guys got me back on. Needless to say, flying by the seat of my pants, and guess what happens? Here comes the election. And I come away with 40.17% of the vote from a 12-year incumbent. Well, the Republican Party's jumping up and down because they were so happy. And at one point during the campaign, because I only had about 4 or 5 weeks. Was it 4 or 5 weeks, Pam? Yep. 4 or 5 weeks of campaign, that was it, from start to finish. And I went over to the Republican, to Michael Barnett's law office, because they were giving me money for some advertising. And I take this money. I had a budget of maybe about $4,000, $4,500. That was it. And most of it came from the party. We did raise some private money in the time that we had. And Michael Barnett, you have to know Michael Barnett. He gets this smirk on his face when he's very pleased with something he's heard from someone. And he gives me this check, and he said, I had breakfast with people from Boca this morning. I said, yeah. He said, and Boca Raton told me, Suzanne Page is a disruptor. And I said, that's good. If I hit a nerve, that kind of nerve, and this short of time, I'm doing something right. So if I hit, in this amount of time, if I hit a nerve, that nerve, what can I do with this amount of time? So that's my thinking. And that's what we're going to do. We got to do it, because our kids are at stake. So I'm Page a disruptor, which is fine. I knew going into the campaign in 2020, I had two things. Besides a big mouth, I had a message that resonated with the parents. And that message, which got me a job as a dean too, is students first. And that's always students first. That's what goes with me. And because the students come, the families come too. And we have to take the families with the students, and we do. We lift up the student, we lift up the family. When I call one of my deans, and I say to one of my kids, they know immediately, I'm going to ask for something, and I usually get it, because they don't come with baloney. It's something serious that needs to be addressed. So I don't think I've ever been turned down. That's a good thing. I love the kids. I do. They, like I say, they run me crazy. It's okay. It's all right. I've got 40 of them now, 40 right now, and more coming from Broward College next month, and that's okay. I'll deal with them. Now, on a serious note, our public education system in this country, and Palm Beach County, it's just a microcosm of what goes on. Because what goes on in Nova goes on in yeshivas, in Jewish day schools, in public schools. I don't know where it's worse. But our students are not allowed to think for themselves. Let me ask a question. I'm going to call out 4 groups of people. 1, National Socialist Party in Germany and the extermination of 6 million Jews. 2, Soviet Union, the war against anti-communists. Cambodia's slaughter of educated middle class. Communist China's Cultural War. What do they all have in common? What they all have in common is that they were all started by progressive utopians with the objective of creating a new utopian society. And that's what's happening in K through 12. And I don't care if it's public school, private school, in between yeshiva, Jewish day school, doesn't matter. It's going on. We've got teachers started way back in Columbia Teachers College. They're communists, Marxists, Leninists, whatever you want to call them. Left-wing ideologues. And it's just permeated the entire school system. How did it happen? Well, it started in 1898, long time ago, with a man named John Dewey. He was a communist. And John Dewey, I'm going to say John Dewey and Company, because he had his band of friends with him. They decided, we're going to dumb down the United States educational system. We're going to destroy this country from the inside out, and we're going to do it by destroying our most precious commodity, our children. And they're our babies. We love them. We want them to be happy. We want them to be healthy. We want them to be able to think for themselves. And how did they go about destroying? And they're destroying it. They're doing a very good job. They're very sneaky about this, because it's happened right under our noses since 1898. That's about 145 years. And we've let it happen, and I'm just as guilty as everybody else. But it's time for us to change it. It was hijacked. It's okay. Very slowly, from the inside out. How did they do it? Well, what they did was, they're trying to make our children functionally illiterate. And now this is one of these times I'm going to give you some numbers, but I'm going to qualify it. I've seen numbers anywhere from 21% to 45% of the percentage of the American public which is functionally illiterate. Now, with that said, I'm very reluctant to quote numbers because I didn't see their studies. I don't know what methodology they used. I don't know what questions they asked. So we have to take it with a grain of salt. But are there a fair amount of functionally illiterate people in this country? Yes, there is, and that's sad. The United States of America spends, of all the developed countries, the most money per student for education. And we ought to be number 1, we're not. We're somewhere around 25, and that's criminal. We got a school board that has a $4.1 billion budget. But I digress. How did the progressives change things? How did they dumb down our educational system? Very carefully, because they were able to rid the public schools of the what's called the traditional, and it's called intensive phonic method. And it was developed by Dr. Sam Orton and Anna Gillingham way back 1950s, the 1950s, actually before then.
Yeah, a couple of years.
Now, what do you mean by a traditional intensive phonics method of learning, of teaching children to read? Well, with that methodology, what happens is the students memorize the sound of letters, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and so, etc. And they have some phonics rules that they have to memorize. Well, what do I mean by this? Well, let's look at the word pot, P-O-T. The Orton-Gillingham method says, okay, we know that P has a sound of P. We know T has a sound of T. Now O, it's got its name, which is O, and it's got its sound, which is A. Well, the phonics rule says, if the word has an E at the end, you say the name of the vowel. If it doesn't have an E at the end of the word, you say the vowel's sound. In this case, pot has no E, so it's pa-a-ta, pa-a-ta, pot. That helps the student learn critical thinking. It helps the student learn analysis. It helps the student understand what they're reading. That's the correct way to teach reading. What did the progressives do? They taught people how they did it. They're very persuasive. Taught people and taught teachers out of using the correct method to teach reading. And what they did, they said, okay, we're going to go to the, they call it the look, say, cite.
Whole language.
Yeah, the whole language. Thank you, ma'am. Which means you just memorize words. Well, if you just memorize words and read that way, how do you understand what you're reading? You don't. And what Orton and Gillingham found is that this look, say, sound of the whole word method, what it does, it causes dyslexia. It can cause dyslexia, but it causes reading disabilities. Can I use that word? Is that correct? And Pam Weldon is a dyslexic specialist. She teaches up at
West Palm Beach.
In West Palm Beach at Billgard, School for the Dyslexic. And she's got 30 plus years. So our students are taught the incorrect way to read. And so it's a wonder why they have problems. The only way, in Palm Beach County, the only way a student is taught how to read correctly, meaning the Orton, Gillingham, and I'm also going to include Barbara Wilson in that group because she did make a contribution to that particular methodology. The only way the student is taught to read correctly in Palm Beach County is if they fail reading. So if they fail reading, gee, we're going to teach them how to do it correctly. Guess why? They get more money. So you got to keep in mind, follow the money. And it's not only in reading that you follow the money, because there have been thousands of grades changed. Why? Follow the money. If students fail, they get more money. And guess who the money comes from? Us, the taxpayers. So that's the root of our problem in education, is reading. And I'm going to add to that the teachers' union, because it doesn't help. We get rid of the teachers' union and teach the kids to read correctly. We can correct things. Can it be done? Sure. What you have to do is fire people. You don't want to teach your kids to read correctly? Fine. You got two choices. Teach them to read correctly, or you don't have a job. I get very excited, Hilda. You know, Hilda said to me, "You got to talk slower." I get very excited with the kids. I do, and I just would, you know, when I am elected to the school board, I'm one person. I'd love to go in and just tear everything apart. I can't do that. But if we get the parents and the grandparents and the relatives, if we unite, and there may have to be lawsuits, and I'm serious about that, because it's criminal what's happening to our kids. They're being abused, they're being sexualized, they're being indoctrinated, and I'm not even gotten there yet. And this is criminal. This should not be happening. These are our precious children, and we love them. And they have to be, their health, safety, and welfare, and their education, proper education, correct education, has to be foremost in our minds. Now, out of the tragedy can come good. Because the Wuhan virus, I don't call it China virus, it's a Wuhan virus. It came out of Wuhan, China, it's a Wuhan virus. The Hong Kong flu came out of Hong Kong, it was a Hong Kong flu. The Wuhan virus that was unleashed by China and Fauci and his merry band of friends, group, yeah, criminals, yes, thank you. In the US, parents became aware of what was going on. Why? Because everything was done online. Boy, did they make a mistake, didn't they? They outed themselves. Isn't that wonderful? So that's something good that came out of tragedy. The virus was bad, and I'm not sure it was really, look, were people getting sick? Yes. Enough said. So out of this, parents were able to see what was going on in classrooms. And they started to say, wait a minute, what is this? And they go to board meetings, and they complain. They'd say, what are you doing? What are you doing to our kids? What were they labeled? Domestic terrorists. Told to leave. I know a number of parents. I speak with parents a lot, and teachers. They were told to leave meetings. You can't be in this meeting. Well, why not? You're disruptive. I ask a question, I'm disruptive. They don't like the question I ask, and they were kicked out of meetings. That's not right. This is the United States of America. I thought we had freedom of speech. Well, we did under Trump. We got to get him back. Some of the things they're doing in the school system that I find offensive. I tend to be conservative and traditional. I've got family values, and I know the teachers in these public schools, their family values don't align with mine. And I would, whether or not they align with your family values, probably not with what's going on. Because Governor DeSantis did pass, a number of bills were passed, I think it was about 23, and some of them were things like sex education can't happen until 4th grade, which I cringe at, because as far as I'm concerned, sex ed has no business in any school, any grade, nowhere, no way, no how. It belongs home with the parents, the grandparents, the family doctor, and whoever, whether they're rabbi, they're minister, whoever, they're religious leader. That's what that belongs. It does not belong in the school. Because when they've got teachers saying, you know, if you want to be, if you don't think you're a girl, if you think you're a boy, we can give you medicine and we don't have to tell your parents. And I'm getting this from teachers. That's criminal. Then give them hormones, to block, hormone blockers. No. And sex ed in fourth grade in co-ed classes? No. I mean, not for my child. Glad my child's not in public school in a lower grade. I'd be having a heart attack. Critical race theory. Governor DeSantis outlawed it. Really? Okay, it's on the books. We've got all these laws on the books. My question is, how do we enforce them? What are we, short of putting the National Guard in each class to make sure it doesn't happen? You know, how do we enforce it? So our children continue to be sexualized, indoctrinated, abused. It's child abuse. It's got to stop. It's got to stop somehow. We got to start somewhere. Critical race theory, which they now call, they have a new word for it, you know, vanilla icing instead of chocolate. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. I got my own version of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Try the golden rule. treat people the way you want them to treat you. And then we've got the late, great, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Judge a man not by the color of his skin, but by the content of his character. How many millions of dollars did I save? No? Critical race theory, that's compliments of Panorama Education. And that company is located in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. One of the principals is a person named Zan Tanner. He's a co-founder. He happens to be married to Rebecca Garland, who happens to be the daughter of Merrick Garland, who happens to be the U.S. Attorney General under the regime that we have in Washington. They have programs in 1,500 schools in all 50 states, so that 25% of the students are enrolled in panorama courses. And these CRT courses, they tell African American and Hispanic students that they're victims because the U.S. is basically racist. They're not victims. In October of 2012, the Florida State passed a 5-year strategic plan with they lowered test standards for African American and Hispanic or Latino students. Why? Oh, the board members said they claimed that the Blacks and Latino students start at different places. Okay, they may. That's probably true in many cases. But the message you're sending to these poor kids is that you're not good enough. You can't do it. You never tell a student they can't do something, never. And I've seen that in my graduate students. Let me tell you a story. I was teaching a course in an MBA program, and one of the two most difficult courses, managerial economics, very quantitative. And in an MBA class, you will get a variety of students. Some will be mathematical and some are not mathematical. Doesn't matter. It's just how the brain's wired. And I did the presentation the first time, first part of the class. And I sent the kids on a break. And I had a fellow came up, he happened to be African American, sweetheart of a kid. And then students started to stand around him. And he comes up to me, and he's like this. I call my nervous Nellies, and he said, Dr. Page, I'm going to fail your class. He's shaking. I said, wait, whoa, Rodney, calm down. What did I say in the first half of this class that you're going to fail? Because if I did that, they need to fire me, or I need to quit, because that's not right. Because as far as I'm concerned, everybody starts out with an A. He made the mistake of saying to me, well, I'm just a sociologist. I said, Rodney, let me tell you a story about me and sociology. When I was in Alabama, one of my last semesters, I needed an elective. So my advisor says, well, Suzanne, why don't you take sociology? You like people. I thought, oh, okay, sure, I'll do that. No. I got that book. There were no equations in that course. I'm not wired that. I'm wired for equations. I'm not wired to not have equations. I dropped it. I said, Rodney, I had to drop it. I can't do that kind of stuff. But I didn't want to. This course is required for you. You can do it, but this is what you need to do. You're going to have to work a little bit harder. I want you to read the chapters. I want you to work the homework. I want you to ask questions in class, and you come out okay. I can almost guarantee it. And he did. And I remember him calling me in my office. It was April 1st, April Fool's Day, and I had to turn in their grades. I turned them in. He calls me in the office. Dr. Page, can you tell me, I know you're not supposed to, but could you tell me what I did in your class? I said, Rodney, you got a B. He said, he was just pleased as punch. Are you kidding me? I said, Rodney, I kid you about something, but I'm not going to kid you about something like that, because I know that you were sweating it, but you got a B. It was not quite enough for me to record an A, but you got a strong B. Congratulations, go celebrate. And you did. All right, let me wind down. I could go on for hours, I'm sorry. You never tell a child they can't do something that hurts their self-esteem. You build their self-esteem by saying, let's do this together. And you take them and the family by the hand. I've done it literally with kids, but figuratively. And you give them the help they need, like tutoring and not lowering standards. You raise them up, and they can do it because kids are great, and I love them. And I thank you for your time.
Well, I was an educator as well, and the only way you get children to believe in themselves is when you believe in them. That's the way to do it. It's the only way. And the language that is coming out of schools today, that you are not worthy based on your color, it just doesn't make any sense. I want to call upon my good friend Gail, who did something magnificent last year before school began. And I'd like you to tell a little bit about what you did. Come up here.
Oh, you know.
You don't have to. Here, you're comfortable. You do this. Tell everyone what you did in the communities, and you saw a need.
Okay, so I am a member of the REC, and
That's the Republican Executive Committee.
and also I am.
Yeah, that's good.
I forgot my title in the REC. I forgot. I'm tired today, but anyway, so they have done fundraisers, you know, like school book stuff. But I decided to take it upon myself and start collecting supplies for kids for August. So I started in May to do that. And I went in front of the REC, and I called them my people because I couldn't even believe it. I raised over $1,000. We got 76 school bags. Now, when I say school bags, I mean quality school bags. You know, kids are very fussy about what they carry, and today some of these school bags break. And you know, it's a little status thing. So anyway, we ended up going on Amazon and getting 76 really nice, solid school bags, and we had all these supplies, which everybody donated from the REC and stuff like that. I mean, it kept donating to the point, even after the school thing was over, people were trying to give me money. And, you know, it's not like I want to turn down money, but I said, no, I don't want your money because it's over with. So it was a good thing to do. What we ended up doing, we gave it to families who needed it, all families, all walks. It didn't matter. I gave quite a few to a counselor who was mentoring a lot of different kids and their families who couldn't afford it. There was one mother who had been trying to find our office because I was the head of the our outreach office for last campaign season up in West Palm. And when you have people come, she had 2 dyslexic children. Oh no, not dyslexic, they were autistic, excuse me. And she was working full time and going to school, and she came in and she says, you know, do you have any supplies left? I said, well, and I really didn't. I had somebody else's, but they said, give it. But anyway, she said, money is so tight. We know with this economy, it's really tight. And she was in virgin tears. She said, if I hadn't gotten these supplies and these book bags, because I loaded them up. She says, you know, I don't really know what I would do. And so I think everybody's hurting all across the board. I don't care if you're middle income, poor, even the wealthy, because I've bumped into a few of those at a few occasions. They're not giving as much anymore because money's just tight because of the fool we have in office. But the bottom line is, I think it's very important to go out in the community. That's why I'm here. I just love coming here because it's important to get the pulse of every group. We are all in this together. Everything affects everybody. You know what I mean? One of the things they asked Trump yesterday, what are you going to do when you get back in office about the anti-Semitic stuff that's going on? And he of course he was elegant in answering it, but we're all in this together. What affects you affects me. Because I'm not for all that nonsense, and I'm not for this, my mother didn't raise me as a victim. I hate to say this, but I'm just gonna tell you. My mother never told me there wasn't anything I could not do. I didn't even know the difference, even though I was raised in Harlem, I didn't even know the difference between black and white. My mother never brought it up. So, if you don't come up with that kind of backward stuff, you just don't know. But what they're doing today, it's just disgusting on every level. We're going back to separating kids in the room. What kind of nonsense is that? Quite frankly, I can't wait to 2024. I can't wait to start working on people's campaigns because, if you don't get in there and do your part, you have nothing to say. You just sit on the sidelines. And it doesn't mean you necessarily have to get out and do it. You could give a little money to a campaign, or you could donate some time. Whatever you can do, it's going to be very important. Because if we don't do some stuff in the next 2 years, our country's doomed. And we're all in it together. But anyway, that's it. Bye.
Isn't she wonderful? And just a minute. And we didn't get a chance to really meet you. I'm going to invite you back.
Okay, great.
Because this issue we just touched on. This is just, we're just at the beginning of talking about something that is dear to my heart, but more than that, it's a pivotal and critical piece of information that we need to be aware of and to do something about, which is what you were just talking about, to be a part of the change that needs to happen in and around our school system in society, because what's happening is that it's bubbling up. And there seems to be there's a Hebrew word called busha. There's no embarrassment in being anti-Semitic today. There's no embarrassment in doing some of the terrible things. And so that brings me to let you know that there is and I have it written down, there is legislation right now in our state house to address, to assign a felony to anyone who uses a laser for anti-Semitic purposes. And it has happened right here in Boca, where swastika was pointed at a building using laser. And so there were 3 representatives who have co-sponsored that. And I will give you the number. We need to let the governor sign that bill when it comes to his desk. It's really important. They've elevated that to a felony. It's just not something we need to permit. We were very fortunate at our last meeting and event program where we had Captain Moss. He talked about what the police, our sheriffs, the various organizations, intelligence operations are doing with the rise in anti-Semitism in our community. And it's pretty critical. It's become the kind of activity that we've all become aware of. In some cases, in a very direct way. I'm going to give you that number. I'm going to publicize it with our mailing so that everyone knows that they need to write to the governor in support of this particular legislation. There is one other piece of legislation that the Speaker of our House, State House, is promoting, and it's a school choice bill, HB1. And what have they done? They've increased the capacity of scholarships for children with disabilities. So school choice, parents having the choice to have their children helped. And it could be in private or public schools. both. Income is the base for getting scholarships, but at this time, it is now being offered to children with disabilities, families with, yes.
I'd like to add something. I think it's really important that we all realize, currently I am working in a private school for children with dyslexic. When I was in New York, I had 25 years of teaching children with significant reading and writing disorders. I love to do it. It's just something I think I was put on the face of the earth for. I did, to be honest with you, I did try to take a retirement and I had to get back in and I loved it so much. But needless to say, I think it's all important we realize I'm not currently working in a private school, and the school for the tuition where I'm at for the parents, if they have children with dyslexic or they have dysgraphia, which is a significant writing disorder that is usually found with children with dyslexic. I want to tell you this tuition for this school is $33,000 a year. And I think we really need school choice. I can't tell you because right now I am working with children the parents can afford to send them to this school. And I think we all need to really get out there and fight for school choice, not just for children with dyslexia, but also children that are autistic and so forth. These private schools are extremely expensive, and it's only certain parents that can afford. And then if they are sent to the public school, they get lost in the shuffle. I hate to say that, but most of them do, because they just don't have the services. We really need to do something about the school choice. I think every parent across America should have a school choice and send their child to the school that they want. I just think the public schools, and I spent my life in public schools and I had a great career, but I do think it's changed somewhat, but that's something I think we all need to fight for, is school choice. And I know President Trump, that was a big on his agenda, and I do believe it still will continue to be.
Thank you.
I did want to add that.
Because I don't think
Thank you
people
so
realize.
much.
Yeah.
The bill I mentioned for school choice, excuse me, I have to get very tall. I brought my own steps too. The bill for school choice is HB 1. We need to support that, and the bill that Mike Caruso introduced with Randy Fine and Vicki Lopez, also representatives, is Bill 269. That's the bill that identifies laser use for anti-Semitic purposes a felony. That's unbelievable and extraordinary. So I also want to say to all of you that we are expecting Commissioner Marcy Woodward at our next meeting, March 21st. And at that meeting, we're going to have an election at around 6:30 of officers for this. Anybody want to be president? Just thought I'd ask. At the next meeting, we're going to have a required election meeting. I'm sorry we didn't have more people, but there's a lot of activity happening everywhere. The final thing that I'd like to say is please join our Republican Club. We are significant in the community and in our efforts when it comes to supporting candidates who have school choice as an agenda item, who understand the importance of bills that punish anti-Semitic acts in significant ways. And that our club, which is now about a year and a half old, we have to reapply for our charter, in fact. We hope you will join it. It's not a lot of money, but it helps us do the work that we have to do. So I thank all of you. I thank you, Suzanne. Well, we don't have any voting here. Oh yes, well, voting is very important, and we will be letting you know what to do about applying for mail-in ballots, which, as I said, changed this year, and we don't have an election cycle in our district. It will be next year, and we will let you know what that process is. So I thank you all for coming, and I think we had a beautiful presentation. Suzanne is so passionate that she just, kind of swallows the content, and you hear it pouring out from her. This is just the first phase of that discussion. As we get closer to the coming year, we're going to develop this theme a little bit more. Thank you again, to all of you, and to our folks right here. You are wonderful. Thank you so much.
We had a wonderful audience.
Yes, the audience, terrific. They were so attentive. Thank you. And I only have one last acknowledgement. First of all, Melissa, whom I love, she comes all the time to every meeting. And my good friend, Fred, who is here all the time, when he can. Sometimes he tells me, he apologizes. I don't forgive him, but he comes when he can, and I have to acknowledge that he is always so supportive of what we're doing, even if he is a Democrat. I had to say that. And the fact that he includes us in the Village Century each and every time, and he's the one who bothers me and asks me, well, do you have anything this time? And of course I have to get it to him. So I do, and I thank him each and every time with great appreciation. And thank you all as well. And I also have to thank Tassie, who is always here helping us. He's fabulous. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. March 21st is our next meeting.